Module 4, problem number 2. For students who enrolled in two-year public institutions in a recent semester, the proportion of who earned a bachelor's degree within 6 years was 0.394. The president of a certain college believes that the proportion of students who enroll in her institution have a higher completion rate. This problem is just looking at understanding how to set up the hypotheses and the different types of errors. So we're just going to go through them. Part A, state the hypotheses. So remember that null hypothesis, H naught, is always that whatever statistic we're looking at is equal to a certain number, whatever we're testing, our test statistic. So in this case, we're looking at the proportion. The problem tells us that, right? So that's P equals, and the number they gave us is 0.394. 0.394. All right, then our alternative is what we're trying to test. In this case, it says the president of a certain college believes that the proportion of students who enroll in our institution have a higher completion rate. When it says higher, that means that we're testing to see if the proportion is greater than 0.394. 0.394. All right, now if it said something like the president believes that it's a lower completion rate, that would be less than. If the president believes that it's a different completion rate, that would be does not equal. You have to look at the words to see if it's telling you greater than, less than, or does not equal. All right, let's check the answer. Fantastic. Part B, which of the following is a type 1 error? So we're going to go, this is from the lesson last week, the PDF lesson. I love this little table. It's a great way to understand the different types of error. So here we have type 1 error. A type 1 error is when we reject the null hypothesis, but in reality, the null hypothesis is true. So let's take a look. The reject is that proportion is equal to 0.394. So we have the president fails to reject. Well, we already know that's not it. The president rejects, fails, and rejects. So we know it's either going to be B or D. Again, we had right here that we're rejecting that null hypothesis. So then in reality, that means that that same error is that the null hypothesis is true. So we have the president rejects the hypothesis when in fact the proportion is 0.394. The wording here is that the proportion is greater than. That greater than is the alternative. So what we're looking at is part B. All right, well done. So part C, which of the following is a type 2 error? Type 2 is that we do not reject the null hypothesis, which means that we did not reject it, but that the alternative is true. So here we have the president rejects, fails to reject, and fails to reject. So again, we're looking at B or C. So let's read the whole sentence. The president fails to reject the hypothesis that the proportion of students who earn a bachelor's degree within 6 years is 0.394, when in fact the proportion is. Now again, we're looking for the alternative to be true. That is not the alternative. That's actually the null hypothesis. So let's look down here. The president fails to reject the hypothesis that the proportion of students who earn a bachelor's degree within 6 years is 0.394, when in fact the proportion is greater than 0.394. So that right there is what we're looking at. So we fail to reject the null, but when the alternative is true. That's our type 2 error. Let's check our answer. Nice work. So that's how you understand how to set up the hypotheses and the type 1 and type 2 error. If you have any questions about that, let me know.